Let's start with what kind of connection type is right for you, whether it's a USB microphone or an XLR microphone. And this comes down to a couple of questions. Do you want simplicity? Do you want a one-stop shop? Do you want plug and play? If the answer to those are yes, then you're looking at a USB mic. But if you want more options, if you want more modularity, more upgradability, more versatility, that is sometimes more confusing and a lot of times more expensive, then you're looking at an XLR mic. I also think it's important to point out that both XLR and USB microphones essentially go through the exact same process. With XLR microphones, you buy the microphone, then you run that through a preamp, which is going to amplify the signal, and then that signal gets converted using an analog to digital converter. With USB microphones, they just throw the microphone, the preamp, the converters, the headphone amp, everything into a single package. With USB microphones, you have a couple of really big pros. First off, a lot of the more affordable options are plug and play. You don't have to think about it. You just connect the USB cable, set your level, and you are good to go. You don't need to worry about buying the right components or anything. Secondly, a lot of them are also very easy to use. You plug them in, set your level. You may have a couple of settings, but then you are done. And finally, over the last couple of years, a number of USB mics have come out that have DSP. That stands for digital signal processing. I will go ahead and engage this on the Rode Pod mic. This allows you to add effects in real time to your signal. So if you want to process the microphone before it goes to a voice call or you're recording, with some USB mics you have that capability. Then as far as the cons of USB microphones, it is undeniable there are a lot of them out there, but in comparison to XLR mics, I find the selection to be somewhat limited, so you don't have as many options available to you when you're looking for the right tool for the job. Secondly, once you buy a USB mic, you're not able to upgrade the signal path for that mic. You can't upgrade any individual component, the microphone, the converter, the headphone amp, any of that. You are stuck with what you got. Another con for USB microphones is the potential longevity of these devices. With XLR and analog microphones, if you treat them well, they will function for decades and decades. If you go into a studio, it is not rare to see a 30, 40, 50, even 60-year-old microphone still being used and still sounding great. With USB mics, we don't have 60 years of history and experience to draw upon, but because they do have digital components to them, I have noticed they seem to fail quite a bit more frequently than the fully analog XLR counterparts. And lastly, a lot of modern USB microphones have resolved this, like the Rode Pod mic, Rode NT USB Mini, but I know a lot of older USB mics run into issues when you try to record multiple of the same mic onto the same computer. So if you are planning on doing that, just make sure you check the capability of the microphone you're buying and identify if you are able to record multiple USB mics of the same kind to the same computer. Then as far as the pros of XLR microphones, number one for me is the variety. You don't just have a handful of options. You have large diaphragm dynamics, handheld dynamics, handheld condensers, small diaphragm condensers, large diaphragm condensers, ribbons, shotguns. Whatever you are looking for, you have an option to get your job done. I also find troubleshooting XLR setups much simpler because you are able to isolate each individual component. You can try a different microphone, different cable, different preamp, different interface to find out where exactly the issue is and only replace that individual component. Piggybacking off of that, it is also much more upgradable in my opinion because you can just upgrade one component. If you like the microphone but you're unhappy with the preamp, you can replace that. Unhappy with the headphone amp, you can replace that. Unhappy with a conversion, you can replace that. That is something that you're not able to do with USB microphones. If you're unhappy with one of those components, you're just running out and buying a whole new USB mic. I also find it easier to record multiple XLR mics to the same computer. You just need an interface with a correct amount of inputs. You set your inputs in your DAW, and then you're off to the races. And lastly, you are able to use XLR mics away from your devices. You don't need to have a computer. You don't need to have a tablet or a phone. If you have a portable recorder, you can set up, you can record, and be done. But then as far as the cons of XLR microphones, they can frequently be much more expensive than the USB alternatives because you aren't just buying the microphone, you have to buy the cable, you have to buy the interface, maybe you even need an outboard preamp. That makes this entire setup sometimes much more expensive than just getting a USB mic. And secondly, if you're new to audio and you don't know a lot about this, getting an entire XLR setup can be very confusing, it can be daunting, and it can be overwhelming. So if that's not something you're into, a simple USB mic may be a better option for you. I've also heard people say that USB microphones are just garbage compared to XLR mics. I don't think that's true. I don't think that USB mics inherently sound any worse than XLR mics. You're just buying every single component required to record in a single package. Just think about everything that goes into a USB microphone. If you're buying a $100 Blue Yeti, you may be spending $40 for the actual microphone, $20 for the preamp, and $20 for the converters or interface. So you're not getting the highest quality components, but for online content creation, I think USB microphones are more than sufficient. Now, to really drive home the point, now I am recording on two different setups. One is a $170 USB condenser. The other is a $4,000 XLR setup. I'm going to be going back and forth between these, and I want you to tell me, do you hear one being better or worse? Do you hear $4,000 difference between them? And if you heard either of these audio qualities, would you shut off a YouTube video, a podcast, or a stream? Microphone A is the Neumann TLM49, which is the $4,000 setup, while microphone B is the Rode NT USB Plus, which costs $170. I really hope you did hear higher quality audio out of the $4,000 setup. Otherwise, I'm questioning a lot of life choices. But if you came across any kind of online content produced with the NT USB Plus or a microphone of a similar quality, I highly doubt any one of you would shut off that video, podcast, or stream because it sounds bad. As long as the microphone is set up well, you can get great sounding audio quality and could probably even use a microphone like this for more professional applications as long as the room you're recording in is quiet and you have some treatment on the walls. But I still hope the $4,000 setup sounds better to you. It does to me. I am fully aware that I am 100% coping right now. I also think there's a little bit of a cap with USB microphones, and what I mean by that is nobody's producing a USB version of a U87. That's not going to happen. So just know that you are getting good audio, but if you're going for the cream of the crop, greatest audio ever recorded, you're going to have to go the analog route. Next, we're covering a bit of a contentious topic, the differences between dynamic and condenser microphones, and that video is going to be linked directly beneath me as well as in the description.